Hi, my name is Hannah Kayla Cordova Dakanai, and I'm a sophomore biology major.
Awesome. So just tell us where you're from, a little bit about cultural background, family life. Just tell us what life was like growing up.
I'm from the Philippines, and I was born and raised there for 17 years before I moved here for school. I was homeschooled from second grade all the way up till high school, and I came from a small family. I just have two younger brothers. We came from a Christian background too, and it was just basically that just basically the same thing. I did go to a Catholic preschool for a while, so I think in the Philippines you get exposed to a lot of different religions, and I think that just made me more aware of like the people around me. Yeah.
Awesome. And so then so when you went to church and stuff, what was like worship music like there, and how is that different from here?
I would think that worship music in the Philippines is not as modern as music here. Just like in chapel, I feel like the songs that we play in chapel are just newer songs. Especially with my church, we were more traditional, so we had a choir and they would sing just choral songs that weren't that new, they were more traditional. And our praise and worship we would have Filipino songs like in our own language, and those songs would mostly be from before the 2010s, so they would be older songs. So I just knew a lot of hymns and Filipino songs. So when I came to chapel here and attended chapel for the first time, I was just surprised at how many songs I didn't know. It was all just learning new songs.
So then what other kinds of music do you like to listen to? Is that what you normally like to listen to in your free time, or are there other like genres that you kind of listen to like generally?
I do think I have sort of an eclectic music taste. I like to listen to songs from the 60s, the 70s, like the Beatles, the Bee Gees. I really like classical music, orchestral and quartet, stuff like romantic music and Baroque music like Bach. Speaking of modern music, I would think that I have more of like an indie taste. So when I'm looking on Spotify, I like to look at more obscure songs just to see what's out there. Not because I have a distaste for mainstream music, but just because I think it's really interesting to explore different kinds of music.
Yeah, I get that. I do the same thing. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
I like indie music as well. So.
Yeah.
So when coming to Cedarville, what were some of the main difficulties you had to adjusting to Cedarville? What were the differences that you weren't expecting when you first came to Cedarville?
I think growing up, I was exposed to a lot of American culture, so I knew what to expect just from people from America who would come to my church or visit us, like relatives. So I knew what to expect, but it was just little things that I didn't notice that affected me. One big thing was just communicating with people verbally. I didn't think that I would have a hard time since growing up. English was basically my first language. I would think and write in English. But back home we would speak English a lot slower just because of our accent, I guess. So I had trouble not a lot of trouble, but formulating my ideas into words and just organizing my thoughts when just thinking on the fly with people. So that's one thing I had to learn the first few weeks, just think faster to get my point across. Yeah.
And then, so what has been your favorite part about Cedarville then since being here?
My favorite part? I just think that it's really great that I know that there's this unifying bond between me and all the students here. Because before, back home, a lot of my classmates or just the friends that I was around were of a different religion, so back home religion isn't something that we really talk about, so I couldn't always talk about my faith with him. But now I feel like it's just very freeing to be able to talk about verses that I've read in the Bible and just that apply to my daily life and just really touch me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then how did you hear about Cedarville when you were in the Philippines?
So my parents were looking for Christian schools in the U.S. So they were just researching online. So we really didn't know anything about Christian schools here. We just knew that we wanted to go to one. And so my mom just found Cedarville, and then we just talked to a few people here. I never even saw Cedarville until I stepped foot here freshman year. So it was just a leap of faith, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the same. I mean, obviously not as far, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from North Carolina, so it took me a while to, you know,
Yeah.
adjust to Cedarville. I had never seen it.
Yeah.
So what are some parts of your culture that you miss while at Cedarville that aren't the same as back home?
I think the biggest impact would be the food. Back home, I just never realized how much, I think it's really cliche to say this, but how much I loved rice. I thought that I wouldn't miss it so much as I do now, just because I was used to like eating burgers and pizza and stuff like that. But I just miss like really good home cooked rice and just like fresh vegetables every day. Like the vegetables we have at home is really different. Other stuff would just be the general noise of the city. A lot of the cars back home are like older cars, so they wouldn't have the same like smooth engines that you have here. So like just the noise of those cars, just the white noise of my everyday life. I miss that. Yeah.
Just reminds you of home, kind
Yeah,
of, anything
yeah.
like that.